No one was allowed to touch the egg. Not after what happened to the last scientist. They said the dragon inside was dead, cold for over 80 years. No heartbeat, no movement, no hope. But then, a small human girl broke the rules. She walked past armed guards, past warning alarms, and hugged the dead dragon egg. At first, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the egg moved. The planet had no name. At least, not one anyone cared to remember. It was a frozen world, far beyond the safe borders of the Galactic Empire, a place where the sun barely touched the surface, and storms of ice never truly stopped. The ground was hard like metal, covered in endless white. No life signs, no movement, just silence. That's why the discovery made no sense. It started with a mining crew. They were not explorers. They were not heroes. Just workers sent to dig deep into the planet's ice, searching for rare minerals. Day after day, they drilled deeper, breaking through layers that had not been touched for thousands of years. Then something changed. Their machines stopped. Not broken, just stopped. Power systems failed at the same time. Lights flickered. Tools shut down. One by one, every system went dark. The workers stood in the cold, confused. And then they saw it. Buried deep under the ice was something massive. At first, they thought it was a rock. But it was too smooth, too perfect. Its surface curved like a shell, covered in strange patterns that seemed to glow faintly under the ice. An egg, a giant egg, larger than any creature known in the galaxy. The moment they uncovered it, something strange happened. The temperature dropped, not around the planet, but right there around the egg. Their breath turned to frost faster. Their suits began to struggle. It felt like the egg was pulling heat away from everything. One worker whispered, "We shouldn't touch it." But it was too late. The discovery was reported, and within days, the Galactic Empire arrived. The egg was transported carefully. Heavy ships carried it across space, guarded by armed fleets. No risks were taken. Whatever this thing was, it was important or dangerous, or both. It was placed inside a high-security research facility, far from public knowledge. Only the best scientists were allowed near it, experts from different species, each one the best in their field. They all had one goal: find out what was inside. The egg was studied for years. They scanned it with advanced machines. Nothing, no heartbeat, no movement, no energy signals. They tried heat, extreme heat, still nothing. They tried electric pulses, radiation, sound waves. Nothing changed. The egg remained cold, silent, lifeless, like a stone, like something long dead. Slowly, the excitement faded. At first, everyone believed it was a great discovery. A dragon egg. Ancient records spoke of dragons, massive creatures with power beyond imagination, creatures that once ruled parts of the galaxy. But dragons were gone, extinct, or so everyone believed. If this was truly a dragon egg, it could change everything. But after years of testing, hope began to die. Reports started using new words: inactive, empty, dead. Many scientists moved on to other projects. Some stopped visiting the lab entirely. The egg became nothing more than a mystery no one could solve. But the egg was not normal. Strange things began to happen around it. At first, they were small. Lights near the chamber would flicker for no reason. Simple system errors would appear and disappear. Doors would unlock, then lock again without command. The staff blamed faulty wiring, old systems, technical problems. But the problems continued. Machines would shut down suddenly when placed near the egg. Data would get erased without explanation. Even backup systems failed. One engineer said quietly, "It's like something doesn't want us to see." No one took him seriously. Then came the feeling. Workers began to report something strange. Not something they could see, something they could feel. A presence. Some said when they stood near the egg, it felt like someone was watching them. Not in a scary way, but in a deep, heavy way, like eyes that couldn't be seen. One worker refused to go near it again. He said, "It knows we are here." After that, fewer people wanted to work in that section, but still no proof. No life signs. No movement. Nothing. Until one scientist spoke up. He was older than the others. Quiet. Careful with his words. He had studied the egg longer than anyone. One day, during a meeting, he said something that changed the room. It's not dead. The others looked at him, confused. He continued, slowly. It's waiting. The room went silent. Someone asked, waiting for what? The scientist paused. Then he said, I don't know. Most of the others dismissed him. There was no data to support his claim. No readings. No signals. No proof. Just a feeling. And in science, feelings meant nothing. The official report remained the same. The egg was dead. Time passed. The egg stayed locked behind thick glass in a cold, quiet chamber. Fewer guards were assigned. Fewer scientists visited. It became just another forgotten object in a massive facility. Something that once mattered, but no longer did. And then, one day, everything changed because someone new entered the facility. Not a scientist, not a soldier, not someone important, just a small human girl. No one noticed her at first. No one thought she mattered. But the moment she stepped closer to the chamber, something deep inside the egg stirred. Her name was Lyra. Most people in the facility didn't know that. To them, she was just the human child. Small, quiet, easy to ignore. She lived in the lower levels of the research station with her father, a maintenance worker. He fixed broken doors, cleaned damaged circuits, and repaired machines that no one else cared about. It was not an important job. And that made Lyra unimportant too. No one expected anything from her. No one watched her closely. And that was why she could go places others didn't. Lyra had seen the egg for the first time by accident. Her father had taken her along during a long shift. There was no one to watch her, and the station was considered safe. At least, most parts of it were. He told her clearly, stay close. Don't touch anything. She nodded, but curiosity is stronger than rules. While her father worked, Lyra wandered. She followed long metal halls, past quiet rooms and glowing panels. The deeper she went, the colder it became. Not freezing, but strange. Like the air itself felt heavy. That's when she saw it. A large door, thick, sealed, guarded. 2 soldiers stood outside, silent and still. Lyra stopped at the corner, watching. The door opened for a moment as a scientist walked out, just a few seconds. But in that moment, Lyra saw it. Inside the chamber, behind layers of glass and light, stood the egg. She didn't know what it was at first. It was huge, taller than any person she had seen. Its surface was dark, with faint glowing lines that moved like slow waves. It didn't shine brightly, but it pulled her eyes toward it. Something about it felt alive, even though everyone said it wasn't. After that day, Lyra kept coming back. Not every day, not openly, but whenever she could. She learned the guard shifts. She learned when the halls were empty. She stayed quiet, careful, unseen. Sometimes she just stood far away, looking through the glass. Sometimes she sat on the cold floor, her knees pulled close, watching in silence. Hours passed like minutes. She didn't know why she kept coming back. She just felt drawn. Others feared the egg. They spoke in low voices when they passed by. Some refused to even look at it. But Lyra didn't feel fear. She felt something else. Loneliness. Not her own. The egg's. One day, she sat closer than usual. Her small hand pressed gently against the glass wall. The egg stood on the other side, quiet as always, cold, still. But Lyra tilted her head slightly, like she was listening. Then she whispered very softly, "You're not alone." Nothing happened. At least, that's what anyone else would have said. The room stayed silent. The egg didn't move. The light stayed steady. But Lyra didn't move either. She kept her hand on the glass, waiting. Then, a sound, so small, so faint, it could have been nothing. A tiny tick, like something shifting deep inside. Lyra's eyes widened. She leaned closer. "Hello?" she whispered again. At that exact moment, the system reacted. Alarms flashed. Not loud emergency alarms, but warning signals. Sensors activated. Machines scanned the egg instantly. Data flowed across screens. Scientists rushed into the room. What happened? Did it move? Check the readings. They scanned everything. Heat levels, energy levels, structural integrity. Every test they had used for years. And the result? Nothing. No change. No life. No movement. The system showed the same result as always. Inactive. Dead. One of the scientists sighed. False signal, he said. Probably a system glitch. Another nodded. Happens sometimes. They turned off the warnings. The room went quiet again, just like before. No one noticed Lyra standing in the corner. No one asked why she was there. No one saw the way she looked at the egg, because if they had, they would have seen something strange. Lyra smiled, just a little, like someone who had heard a secret. After that day, she came back more often, not just to watch, but to talk, very softly, so no one else could hear. She told the egg small things, about her day, about her father, about how big and cold the station felt. She didn't expect answers, but she spoke anyway, because something inside her told her it was listening, and sometimes, very rarely, she would hear it again. That faint sound, a small shift, a quiet response, never enough for machines to detect, never enough for anyone else to believe, but enough for her. The scientists continued their work, or what was left of it. Most had already given up. To them, the egg was just an object, cold, empty, dead. But Lyra knew better. She didn't need machines. She didn't need scans. She didn't need proof, because every time she stood near the egg, she felt it, a soft, deep presence, not strong, not awake, but there, waiting. One evening, as the lights dimmed and the station grew quiet, Lyra sat in her usual place. She looked at the egg and whispered again, "I'm here." The room stayed still, but inside the egg, something moved, not enough to shake it, not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to change everything, because for the first time in decades, the dead egg was no longer alone, and somewhere deep inside, something ancient, something powerful, was beginning to wake up, slowly, quietly, because of one small human girl, who no one noticed. That night began like any other. The station was quiet, cold, controlled. Machines hummed softly through endless hallways. Lights blinked in slow rhythm. Guards stood at their posts without emotion, as if nothing in the universe could surprise them anymore. And in the center of it all, the dragon egg waited, silent, still, unchanging, or so everyone believed. But deep inside the station, something went wrong. A power fluctuation, small at first, almost invisible. Then a second surge followed, and suddenly, key systems began to fail. Security doors flickered. Lock protocols reset. Cameras glitched for half a second at a time. No alarm sounded. No emergency calls were made, because the system thought it was just another routine error. And in that small moment of failure, a door unlocked. Not just any door. The door to the forbidden chamber. Lyra saw it happen. She was not supposed to be there. She had come with her father earlier and was waiting in a quiet hallway nearby. As always, she was watching the distant glow of the egg chamber through the glass panels. But then she saw something strange. The red lock light turned green. The heavy door clicked open, just slightly, then closed again, then open once more, like the station itself had forgotten what it was doing. Lyra's heart beat faster. She looked around. No guards were nearby. No scientists were watching. The hallway was empty, completely empty. For the first time in days, no one was paying attention. She stepped forward slowly. One step, then another. Her small shoes made no sound on the cold metal floor. Her breath felt heavier the closer she got. Every instinct told her to stop, to turn around, to go back, because this was not allowed, not safe, not normal. But something else pulled her forward, something stronger than fear, something deep and quiet, like a voice without words. The same feeling she always had near the egg, only stronger now. She reached the door. It was still slightly open. A thin line of light spilled out from inside. Lyra looked inside, and there it was, the chamber, the egg. It stood in the center, like a sleeping giant, surrounded by glass barriers, broken monitors, and inactive machines. The air inside felt different, heavier, older, like time itself slowed down in that room. The egg was darker than she remembered, but also closer, more real. Lyra took a step inside. The door behind her slowly closed, not locking, Not trapping, just closing, like the station was watching silently. She walked forward. Each step echoed softly. The egg did not move. No alarm sounded yet. No guards came running. The world felt paused, like everything was holding its breath. Lyra stopped just in front of it. She looked up. It was enormous, even more massive up close. Its surface had cracks now, very small ones, barely visible. She reached out her hand, then stopped. She hesitated. For the first time, she felt real fear, not of danger, but of being wrong. What if it truly was dead? What if she was just imagining everything? But then she remembered the feeling, the presence, the quiet whispers inside her mind when she came here before. And she knew it was not dead. Slowly, she placed both hands on the egg. Cold, still cold, but different now. Not empty, just sleeping. Then Lyra did something no scientist, no soldier, no machine had ever done. She hugged it, small arms wrapped around the giant egg as far as she could reach. Her forehead pressed against its surface, and in a soft voice she whispered, "You're not alone." For a moment, nothing happened. The chamber stayed silent. The egg stayed still. Even the air seemed frozen again. Then, a sound, deep from inside, not mechanical, not electrical, something alive. A pulse, slow at first, then stronger. Boom, like a heartbeat awakening after a long, endless sleep. The egg began to glow. Faint light spread through its cracks. Warmth filled the chamber. For the first time in decades, the cold disappeared. Lyra stepped back slightly, eyes wide. The egg pulsed again. Boom, boom, stronger, faster, alive. Outside the chamber, alarms exploded. Red lights filled the entire station. Emergency systems activated instantly. What is happening? Energy spike in Chamber 7. Impossible. The egg is reacting. Guards ran through hallways. Scientists rushed from control rooms. Doors slammed open as people flooded toward the chamber. Inside, Lyra stood frozen. She didn't move. She didn't run. She just watched. Because she knew something no one else did. This was not danger. This was birth. The egg cracked again. A long line formed across its surface. Then another. Warm light spilled out like fire trapped inside. The pulse became stronger. The entire chamber shook slightly. Not violently, but like something stretching. Waking up, guards reached the door. "Open it," one shouted. "They're inside." But when they looked through the glass, they stopped, every one of them. Silence fell instantly, because they saw it. A small human girl, standing beside the glowing egg, and the egg responding only to her. A scientist whispered in disbelief. "It chose her." Another shook his head. "No, that's impossible." But the readings did not lie anymore. Energy was rising. Life was forming. Connection was established. Inside the chamber, the egg cracked one final time. A deep light burst through. Warm, bright, alive. And in that moment, everything changed. Forever. Because the dragon inside had finally awakened. And it had not chosen science. It had not chosen power. It had not chosen the empire. It had chosen a human girl. The one who gave it what no machine ever could. Kindness. The entire station changed in seconds. Red alarms were still flashing. Sirens echoed through long metal corridors. Soldiers ran in confusion, not sure they were facing a disaster or a miracle. But inside the chamber, everything felt different. The egg was no longer silent. It was alive. Warm light spread through its cracks like veins of fire. The cold that had ruled the chamber for decades was gone. The air itself felt softer, heavier, almost breathing. And Lyra stood close to it, small and still, watching what she had started. She did not understand the science behind it, but she understood something the scientists did not. The egg was not broken. It was waiting. When the emergency teams finally entered, they did not touch the egg. They could not. Every instrument they brought began to fail the moment they stepped inside. Screens flickered. Sensors gave nonsense readings. Even recording devices stopped working properly. It was as if the chamber refused to be measured. A senior scientist stepped forward, staring at the glowing cracks. "No life sign should exist," he said loudly. "We confirmed this for years." Another replied, voice shaking, "Then explain this." But no one could, because the truth was changing in real time. The egg pulsed again. Boom! A deep vibration rolled through the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. The light inside the cracks grew stronger, and for the first time, they saw movement. Not random, not noise, intentional movement. Something inside was responding, not to machines, not to tests, but to Lyra. The scientists rushed to recalibrate their systems. They scanned again and again, but every result returned the same conclusion. The dragon had not been dead. It had been in a deep sleep, a biological stasis older than their technology could understand, a survival state, not triggered by heat, not triggered by energy, but something far more complex, something none of them expected. One of the oldest researchers stepped back slowly. His eyes stayed fixed on the glowing egg. He whispered something almost no one heard. "It's not reacting to science." He swallowed hard. "It's reacting to intent." The word spread quickly. Intent, not force, not data, not control. Intent. The idea sounded impossible, but the evidence was standing right in front of them. The dragon inside the egg was not waking because it was stimulated. It was waking because it was accepted, because it was understood, because something had reached it that no machine ever could. Lyra stood quietly near the glass wall. She did not speak. She did not move, but her presence alone seemed to stabilize the glowing cracks. Whenever she stepped slightly back, the egg's light dimmed. Whenever she stepped closer, it grew brighter. The scientists noticed this pattern immediately, and they were terrified, not of danger, but of truth. One researcher finally said out loud, "This is impossible unless—" He stopped. Another finished the sentence for him. "Unless it bonds emotionally." Silence fell again. Heavy silence. Because that concept had only existed in ancient myths. Stories from lost civilizations. Stories of dragons that once walked with sentient beings. Not as weapons. Not as tools. But as partners. The lead scientist turned slowly toward Lyra. His voice was softer now. "What did you do?" Lyra looked at him, confused. "I didn't do anything," she said quietly. But that was not true. Everyone in the room knew it. She had done what years of science could not. She had reached something inside the egg. Something deeper than biology. Something ancient. Something alive. The dragon pulsed again. Boom. This time, the cracks widened. A thin line of molten light spread across the shell. The chamber temperature rose, but not dangerously, comfortably, like warmth returning after a long winter. The egg was preparing. A scientist ran full historical scans again, desperate for answers. Old fragments of data appeared from forgotten archives, broken texts, ancient warnings, half-lost records, and one line repeated across multiple sources. Dragons do not respond to power. They respond to truth of heart. No one had believed it. Until now, another crack formed, then another. The shell was no longer stable. The dragon inside was pushing forward, but not violently, not aggressively. It was trusting, like something returning home after a very long journey. Lyra slowly placed her hand on the glass again. She spoke softly, almost like a promise. "You can come out now." The egg responded instantly. A stronger pulse shook the chamber. Boom! The light inside flared brighter than ever before. The scientists stepped back in shock. "This is it," one shouted. "It's hatching." But another scientist shook his head. "No, it's not just hatching." He looked at Lyra. "It's choosing." The crack spread rapidly now. Light spilled through every line. The shell was breaking apart from the inside. And yet, there was no fear, no aggression, only connection. Because inside that egg, something ancient had finally realized the truth. It was not alone anymore, and it did not need to fight. It did not need to survive in silence. It had been found by a human child. The final systems recorded one last impossible reading before failing completely. Bond established. Species, unknown dragon entity. Status, awakening. Trigger, human emotional contact. The scientists stood frozen. For years, they believed they were studying a dead object, but now they understood. They were witnessing the birth of a relationship that science had never prepared them for. And as the egg trembled one final time, everyone in the chamber knew the truth. The dragon was not just waking up. It was remembering humanity, and it had chosen Lyra, not because she was strong, not because she was powerful, but because she was human. And that changed everything. The entire facility stood still. Every alarm had stopped. Every siren had gone silent. Even the soldiers who had rushed in earlier were no longer shouting commands. No one moved. No one spoke. It was as if the whole station had forgotten how to breathe. All eyes were locked on the chamber, on the egg, on Lyra. The egg's glow had become blinding now. Bright lines of light moved across its surface, like living fire trapped under glass. The cracks were no longer small. They were spreading fast, wrapping around the shell like a web of golden energy. The temperature inside the chamber rose, but not dangerously. It felt warm, comforting, like standing near a rising sun after a long, cold night. Scientists stared at their broken monitors. Nothing worked anymore. Every system had failed the moment the egg reached its final stage. One technician whispered, "We've lost all readings." Another replied quietly, "It doesn't matter anymore," because everyone could see it now. This was not an experiment. This was a birth. A deep sound filled the chamber. Boom. The egg trembled. Another pulse followed. Boom. The shell shifted. Then a sharp crack echoed through the room. Crack. Silence followed. A moment, so heavy it felt like time itself had stopped. Then the cracks exploded outward. Light burst from inside the egg like a star breaking free. The shell broke apart. Slowly at first, then faster. Pieces of the ancient shell fell away, dissolving into glowing dust before they even touched the floor. The chamber was filled with golden light, so bright that many had to shield their eyes. And then something moved. A small shape pushed through the broken shell. At first, it looked fragile, weak, still forming. Its wings were small and folded tightly. Its body trembled as it took its first breath outside the egg. It was a dragon, but not the terrifying kind from old legends. Not a monster, not a weapon, just alive. It stood there for a moment, blinking slowly. Its eyes opened, deep, ancient, intelligent, and searching. Not confused, not afraid, searching for something it already knew. The scientist stepped forward slightly, shocked. This is impossible," one of them whispered. Another replied, "It survived the stasis and hatched naturally." But their words meant nothing now, because the dragon was not looking at them. It was looking at her. Lyra stood still, small, quiet. Her hands were trembling slightly, but she did not move back. She did not run. She did not speak. She simply watched. The dragon slowly turned its head. The entire room felt like it held its breath again. Step by step, the small creature walked forward, not toward the soldiers, not toward the scientists, not toward the machines, only toward Lyra. Every step it took felt meaningful. Soft claws touched the floor. Light reflected off its scales like liquid gold. It moved carefully, like it already understood where it belonged. And then it stopped in front of her. Lyra knelt down slowly. Her eyes met the dragon's. For a long moment, neither of them moved. No sound, no alarms, no fear, only silence. Then the dragon leaned forward, slowly, gently, and pressed its head against her chest. A soft contact, warm, trusting. Lyra gasped quietly, but she did not pull away. Instead, she placed her hand on its head, carefully, like she had done before with the egg. The dragon closed its eyes and let out a soft sound, not a roar, not a growl, but something peaceful, something almost emotional. The entire chamber reacted. Some scientists stepped back in disbelief. One of them whispered, "It chose her." Another shook his head slowly. "No, it bonded with her." A soldier dropped his weapon without realizing it. No one spoke after that, because everyone understood what they were witnessing. The the most powerful creature in the galaxy, had chosen the smallest human in the room, not for power, not for control, not for survival, but for connection. The dragon stayed close to Lyra, refusing to move away, as if the rest of the world did not exist anymore, as if only she mattered. From that day forward, everything changed. The Galactic Empire rewrote its laws. Dragons were no longer classified as weapons, no longer treated as assets, no longer controlled, because control was impossible now. They had learned something they could not unlearn. Dragons did not obey force. They responded to bond. And humans were no longer ignored, no longer considered weak, no longer seen as unimportant, because they had proven something no other species could. They could form bonds where others saw only objects. They could reach life where others saw only data. They could awaken what the galaxy had forgotten. Lyra became known across the station, then across systems, then across worlds, not as a scientist, not as a soldier, but as something far greater, the first human dragon guardian. But she never saw herself that way. To her, she was just a girl who stayed, the girl who listened, the girl who was not afraid to care. And the dragon, it never left her side. Not once, not ever, because in a universe full of fear, control, and power, they had found something stronger, a bond that could not be broken, a trust that could not be measured, and a truth the galaxy would never forget. Sometimes the strongest force in existence is not power. It is connection. Dragon sparkles.